Good morning. I want to talk today about the upcoming lunar month from November 13th through December 12th and its impact on the country of Iran. Iran, of course, is a country that America has a very, very difficult relationship with from our point of view and the perspective of many. They export terrorism around the world. They are the primary supporters, it appears, of Hamas in Gaza, uh, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and other uh, groups elsewhere. So the relationship between Israel and Iran, the United States and Iran, several other countries in Iran, it's very contentious, let's say. And even though the evidence is not there to show that Iran pulled the trigger, so to speak, on this latest conflict between Hamas and Israel, uh, they have certainly been the backers of Hamas for several years. They use these groups to fight proxy wars with other countries. And they are clearly providing uh, logistical support, other advice, being in discussions with leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah and other groups right now. So let's take a look at what's going on astrologically. Give me a moment to share my screen here. And I just need to get rid of a few panels that are in my way. You're probably not seeing them. I just got a few cleanup things to do here. And now I'm ready to go. So, the lunar month and Iran for Iran, November 13th, 2023 through December 12th, 2023. Now, we'll start out just taking a quick look at the natal chart for Iran. The chart that I like to use, which seems to work the best, is for February 11th, 1979. Set up at 10:20 a.m. Tehran, Iran. The Rodin rating on this chart is A, so we have a good birth time. And this is a chart for the fall of the monarchy and when Khomeini took control and uh, declared a new government. And this chart really seems to work well. Okay, now, one of the things that is very prominent in this chart is that Chiron is conjunct the ascendant. And remember that the real nature of Chiron is it urges us to transcend the visible reality that we see and to seek something more. But in the process, it often has to crack our hard shell, and that's where the wounding comes in. So when Chiron applies to the masses, you usually see a lot of wounding. When it applies to individuals, you could see either wounding, healing, or transcendence. The good news is that Iran does have the capacity to be a light unto the nations, just like Israel has that capacity. And just as America has the capacity to be that shining city on the hill, which it often is, but also often is not. Uh, when it comes to wounding, certainly Iran has done a lot to wound its own people and to wound other countries, which is why many look upon Iran as a chief exporter of terrorism these days. Now, the other interesting thing in this chart is you have a grand trine involving Chiron and Taurus, Venus, in Capricorn and Saturn in Virgo. Okay, now Saturn also rules the 10th house, which means it refers to the leadership of Iran, and that leadership is very controlling. And with Saturn and Virgo in the 5th house, it means that leadership tries to control the pleasures of the people, the creativity of the people, down to the last detail. Hence, you have the morality police going around, arresting people, beating up people, killing people, just for not having the right headgear. Venus is in Capricorn, and we have Capricorn both on the cusp of the 9th house and the 10th house. Capricorn, or let's say the 9th house, rules religion, and hence it's no surprise that the country is ruled by a very conservative religion. Now, trines, we usually think of them as being good. Actually, they mean easy. It doesn't mean that someone will do good in the world necessarily if they have a lot of trines. It just means the things they do will happen easily. And so we have this grand trine between Chiron and Taurus, Venus and Capricorn in the 9th house, Saturn and Virgo in the 5th house. And so they have been able to easily create a certain kind of stable government based upon religious rule, control of the population. And unfortunately, a lot of wounding of others from the viewpoint of many. Uh, we'd hope it would be more transcendence, but there seems to be more wounding. Okay. Now, I also want to point out that the Iranian people are not the Iranian government. As a mathematics professor, teacher, I had many Iranian students who were just wonderful people, very bright and very friendly. And the people of a country are not always the same as the government of the country. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are very conservative, go along with their government, but there are also, I know, a lot of people who are wounded by their government. Okay, so this is the backdrop. This is what Iran looks like. Before I go on, let me point out that you see Pluto at 19 degrees Libra in the 6th house. The 6th house has to do with work, with health, with having to make adjustments for all the things that weren't quite in balance in houses 1 through 6. Pluto also rules the 7th house, relationships with others. This can be very warlike, very tense. The very important thing I want to point out here is on April 8th of 2024, there is going to be a very powerful solar eclipse where Sun, Moon, and Chiron are all conjunct at, I believe, 19 degrees 24 minutes Aries. That, in general, is going to probably cause a lot of wounding for the world. It could be healing, it could be transcendence, but it's more likely going to be wounding. So 2024 may be the year of wounding for the world. And there are several countries which are going to be impacted by that conjunction, that solar eclipse. And one of them is going to be Iran, since that Sun Moon Chiron conjunction is going to be directly opposite Pluto at 19 plus degrees Libra. So there could be some great wounding for Iran in the coming year. Also impacted by that solar eclipse are going to be Hamas, Israel, the United States, Putin, and probably some others. I'll do a separate video on that and try and find as many people and countries as I can that will be affected by that eclipse. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. If we look at Iran's relationship with Israel, it is very tense. And I've got Israel's chart on the inside, Iran's on the outside. One of the things we have is Uranus is conjunct Chiron and opposite Sun, and Sun, Mercury is going to be square Chiron and the Sun. So here you see transiting Uranus, it's activating the Sun Chiron opposition Israel's chart. That opposition in the chart of Israel is what gives it the capacity to be a light unto the nations. When the urge to transcend of Chiron is completely and beneficially integrated with the sun representing the soul of the nation, then Israel becomes a light unto the nations. When this integration is not complete and not done beneficially, then you have this pattern where Israel can be wounded or it can wound others. And Uranus is in conjunction with Chiron, so it's involved with a lot of sudden wounding to Israel. And the Sun and Mercury in Iran's chart, squaring this Sun Chiron opposition Israel's chart, that also further activates that opposition, resulting in this pattern of wounding and being wounded and wounding again on Israel's part. Okay, now we also have uh, Iran's Mars in opposition to Israel's Saturn. Okay, this is aggression and frustration. It's not an easy relationship here. Additionally, the moon is conjunct Pluto and square the lunar nodal axis in Israel's chart. The square to the nodes that intensifies things. This moon Pluto conjunction, well, Pluto is in Israel's chart, so Iran tends to look upon Israel as the oppressor. Uh, they see Israel as the one that is causing the problems. What's interesting is that this is pretty much the same position of the moon in our chart for Hamas. We don't have an exact birth time for Hamas. We know the day and place that it was created, but the moon for Hamas, it's going to be somewhere close to where the moon is in Iran's chart and to where Pluto is in Israel's chart. So Hamas and Iran, they have their moons conjunct. That immediately creates a rapport between uh, those two entities, and it puts them on the same page, particularly with respect to Israel. Okay, we also have Venus in Iran's chart opposite Venus in Israel's chart. Venus rules the right brain and those right brain values we have regarding what's good, what's bad. And what this means is that Iran and Israel, they tend to naturally have opposite views of the world, totally opposite ways of looking at things. So we got a lot of tension here. And as I like to say, these two countries are not boyfriend and girlfriend. Now, if we look at the relationship between Iran and America, again, I've got Iran's chart on the outside. And the chart that I typically use for America is a July 2nd, 1776 chart for the passage of the Resolution for Independence. I think this works a little better, but I think all the various July 1776 charts are relevant. And there are other charts for the establishment of the Constitution, etc. The establishment of America is a process that took place over time. So there are many charts that are relevant and that can work. I just find this one working well, maybe working the best most often. And as compared to other July 1776 charts, the only difference is going to be the position of the moon. For July 4th charts, that moon has moved into Aquarius, moved about 30 degrees. Anyway, if we take a look at some of the aspects between these two charts, uh, let's see. Oh, I put T here for transiting. I need to take that out. We're not transiting here. These are just aspects between one chart and another. So when you see something like T Pluto, T Neptune, that's actually the planet in Iran's chart. So sorry about that. Iran's Pluto is opposite America's Chiron. So that is a tense relationship between the two countries where a lot of wounding can go back and forth. In this case, uh, we may perhaps do more wounding to Iran through the heavy sanctions that we have gotten the world to impose upon that country. We also have Iran's Neptune opposite America's Mars, where you see N here for natal, that actually is going to be America's planets. Okay, so Iran's Neptune is opposite America's Mars. This is ideology, religious beliefs here, assertive action, aggression over here in America. Again, some tension. Then Iran's Chiron is making a square to America's lunar node. So Iran tries to wound us also. That puts us on alert and creates a certain intensity. And then let's see, what else do we have? Well, transiting Venus is opposite. I'm sorry, not transiting. I keep reading this T here. Iran's Venus is opposite America's midheaven and America's Jupiter and square America's ascendant. So again, uh, Iran's beliefs from a right brain perspective, the things it values, are going to be at odds with America's leadership and the American people. So we don't have a real good relationship here between Iran and America either. Okay, now, if we look at some of the aspects uh, that are prominent in this 3 month period from October through December, well, we had a transiting Uranus was making an exact square to Iran's sun on, uh, let's see, October 22nd. It made an opposition. It will make an opposition to uh, natal to Iran. I'm sorry, to Uranus. Uranus makes an opposition. Transiting Uranus makes an opposition to natal Uranus in Iran's chart. That will be exact on November 16th. Let me go back to Iran's chart for a second, take a closer look at these. Uh, we have natal Uranus in the seventh house, so this represents other nations. The sun is in the 10th house, which has to do with the rulership. It's also near the cusp of the 11th house, which has to do with group action. So this all corresponds, all of these planets, Sun, Mars, Capricorn, it refers to kind of a group rule by the religious leaders, the clerics in Iran, who are really let's call them the puppet masters. They pull the strings, more so probably than the president of Iran. So when transiting Uranus is down here in Taurus, uh, it can activate sudden events with other nations. And when squares the sun, this can lead to some very sudden or rash decisions. And since Iran is being excited, stimulated by these aspects, transits from Uranus, and it's not being stimulated in a good way, most likely. It's probably represents sudden emotion and rash thinking, sudden decisions. So this date is passed. Keep an eye out for November 16th. Now, let's see. You see a lot of transits from Mars. I'm only looking at conjunctions, squares, and oppositions here because those are the things which create tension that usually result in action. And some of these Mars transits have passed, but this is a lot of aggression being stirred up with respect to Iran. And we've already seen Iran having meetings with leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. And so it looks like they are pulling some strings behind the scenes. They have had some of their groups do attacks on American installations in Iraq and elsewhere. For example, a lot of this aggression will go up until the 14th, and then perhaps after mid-March, things will calm down a little bit and then pick up later on in December. I also have here uh, a chart showing some midpoints that will be activated. And midpoints are like turning points or breaking points. So if there are tense transits, then when a particular midpoint is being activated, that could be a day when something breaks, something happens. And we see that Pluto will be in opposition to the Pluto ascendant midpoint on November 15th. The ascendant represents the persona of the country and its people, and Pluto can be very destructive. So this does not look like a necessarily pleasant transit. So we can keep an eye on November 15th, see what happens around that date. Also of concern are we have two midpoints being activated close together on November 6th and 8th. Chiron is involved, and Chiron will likely manifest as wounding. So this could be wounding to the country itself or wounding to others. Let's see, Chiron is in opposition to the moon Neptune midpoint. Whenever the moon's involved, that can involve the people of a country. Neptune can involve the ideology of the country. And on the 8th, Chiron will be in opposition to the Saturn Uranus midpoint. And Saturn rules the 10th house of rulers. Uranus is in the 7th house, which rules other countries. So, will Iran do something either directly or indirectly through its surrogates to wound other countries? That is a question. We don't know exactly what will happen because people have free will, they have choice. As I often say, astrology shows what the weather is going to be like. It does not show how people will decide to react to that weather. People can take the high road or they can take the low road. Certain things tend to be more probable than others, but we don't know exactly what choices people make until something happens. Okay, and here I have some other upcoming midpoints and their dates. These are things to keep an eye on. When Jupiter is involved, and Jupiter is involved in a lot of these, that could be something beneficial because Jupiter is growth and expansion, or it could simply magnify something that's bad. For example, when Jupiter is conjunct the Mars Jupiter midpoint, that could magnify aggressive tendencies. Uh, when Jupiter is in opposition to the Venus Saturn midpoint, well, that might magnify the benevolent aspects of Venus trying to reduce tensions, or it might magnify the restrictive aspect of Saturn, or both in some way. Okay, so these are all things to just keep an eye out for. Certain dates. On the 9th of December, when Jupiter is conjunct the Chiron ascended midpoint, that could be a magnification of some wounding, either wounding to Iran or wounding to others. Okay, now I do want to talk primarily about the upcoming lunar month from mid November through mid December, but first I want to point out a couple of things regarding the impact of the recent eclipses on Iran. And if we start with the October 14th solar eclipse and Iran, I've got Iran's chart on the inside. And now my labels for transiting and natal are going to be correct. Transiting Chiron is, let's see, where do I have that? Yeah, right here. It's going to be opposite natal Pluto, and transiting Sun, Moon, and Mercury are going to be conjunct natal Pluto. And you can see also that transiting Mercury is exactly to the degree opposite transiting Chiron. So on October 14th, this is stimulating Iran's urge to do something destructive to other countries, most likely, since Pluto rules the seventh house. This could also come back on Iran because Pluto is in the sixth house, where the country has to do some karmic payback for its actions. That leads to ill health and work that has to be done by the country. So, this is setting a stage. Remember, what happens during an eclipse, it can be so intense, the impact can affect you for several months thereafter. So, this is really stirring the pot for Iran, stirring deep anger, which can lead to wounding of others and wounding of themselves. Now, we also have transiting Uranus opposite natal Uranus and square this Sun Mercury conjunction up here. This is leading to sudden changes in relationships with other countries, sudden actions by the leadership, most likely, uh, and very rash decisions that can have unfortunate consequences. Transiting Mars is squaring natal Jupiter in the fourth house. Iran and its people are probably stirred up over what they see going on in the world. So this is also creating some more anger. And transiting Jupiter is square the natal moon, Jupiter here, square that moon. So this is magnifying the reaction of the people right now. Okay, now this wounding we see by Chiron, we're also going to see Chiron involved in the lunar eclipse chart for October 28th. But when we look at the upcoming upcoming lunar month from mid-November through mid-December, there is going to be a very beneficial transit from Jupiter going on, and hence a lot of the wounding indicated in these eclipse charts, insofar as it's wounding to Iran, that wounding may be deferred until later. And remember that on April 8th, 2024, Sun, Moon, and Chiron, at the time of a solar eclipse, they will all be exactly conjunct at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries. That puts it in opposition that's exact to the degree to Iran's Pluto. So that is when we might see some major wounding really coming back to Iran or coming from Iran. The problems that are happening now, they may fester and grow until they become even greater in March and April of 2024. Okay, if we look at the October 28th lunar eclipse, here is how Chiron is involved. It's not transiting Chiron this time, but the sun and the moon, they are actively stimulating Chiron in Iran's natal chart. Iran has Chiron at 5 degrees Taurus, transiting moon is at 5 degrees Taurus, transiting sun is at 5 degrees Scorpio, strongly impacting Chiron in the natal chart. So at this point, we expect Iran to be doing what it can, probably to export wounding to Israel and to others, including America. Uh, let's see what else is going on. We still have transiting Uranus, making an opposition to natal Uranus and squaring Sun and Mercury in Aquarius uh, near the cusp of the 11th house. This is something which is going to be going on throughout much of the upcoming lunar month, too. So we can expect a lot of sudden actions, rash decisions from Iran's leadership and decisions that will impact other countries. Okay, and let's see, we also have transiting uh, Mars and transiting Jupiter square the natal moon. So the people are going to be angry, feeling very aggressive as a result of that. Let me go back a slide or two. Let's see. Now here we just had at the solar eclipse just transiting Jupiter's square natal moon, magnifying the emotions of the people. And now Mars joins in, creating more anger. And let's see, we also have transiting Venus conjunct the lunar nodal axis. That is intensifying people's feelings and squaring natal Neptune. Okay. Which is in the 8th house in Sagittarius, the sign of religion. So there is a certain ideological fervor here uh, over things that are happening in the world, most likely. All right. And now we get into the lunar month that begins with the new moon on November 13th. And what's going on here? Well, we not only have transiting Uranus still in opposition to natal Uranus and squaring the natal Sun and Mercury, but On this side, Sun, Moon, and Mars, at this time of the new moon, they're strongly conjunct natal Uranus. This is setting the stage for the entire month. Uh, Most likely, and based upon what we see in the news, Iran is very angry at what is going on in the Middle East. It's thinking along military lines. Everything is in Scorpio, which has very strong, intense emotions. Mars is the co-ruler of Scorpio. It's anger and aggression. And Uranus is being stimulated, so this can be sudden actions. And the rulers are being affected by this as well. Okay. And we also have the transiting lunar nodes making a square to the midheaven. So the reactions of the people in control of Iran, uh, they're feeling a certain intensity right now. Now, the good part for Iran is that transiting Jupiter is conjunct the natal ascendant. And this usually brings good luck uh, to a person or to a country whenever you have an aspect like this, Jupiter conjunct your ascendant. So it's very possible that for this month at least, that Iran might escape retribution for its actions. There's a slight possibility, though, that since natal Chiron is conjunct Iran's ascendant, there is a slight possibility that this could magnify wounding to others. That's actually a little bit more likely, but slight possibility that this could magnify wounding to Iran itself. So that could happen, but for now, I think it's going to probably work out more beneficially. But we just have to, as I always say, we just have to wait and see. People make decisions, not the stars. When we go on to the first quarter moon, remember new moon, first quarter moon, full moon, third quarter moon. Those are moments of additional tension throughout a month. And what's going on with transits at those points kind of tells the whole story for the month. So at the first quarter moon, we still have transiting Uranus opposite natal Uranus, square Sun and Mercury. That tension lasts throughout the month. It puts Iran on high alert. They're sort of like on, you know, heavy doses of caffeine now, and more likely to make rash decisions, sudden decisions. And the lunar nodes are going to tend to square the midheaven throughout the month. So that is intensifying things related to the leadership of Iran. Uh, they're all going to feel like they've had 50 cups of coffee. But at the same time, look at what happens now. Jupiter is moving retrograde, getting closer to this ascendant. And I generally use 2-degree orbs for these things. And so by the time we get to the first quarter moon, it's within 2 degrees of a trine to natal Venus. And this makes it, let's see, this makes it more likely uh, that more pleasant things will happen for Iran. These are two benefics that are acting a very coordinated way to hopefully produce something pleasant for the state of Iran. So, despite all these other tensions in Iran's chart, despite the tense situation in the Middle East, this may be also a little period of grace for Iran where it might escape uh, wounding to itself and might find itself free to do uh, what it wants to do without repercussions. But those repercussions will probably come uh, later, if not sooner. And we can base that upon we can base that upon the stimulations of Chiron in the October eclipse charts and the upcoming devastating effect that the April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse will probably have upon Iran. Now, when we get to the full moon, it's the same aspects. Nothing has changed. So, this is basically what is going to endure throughout. Actually, the only thing which has changed is that it's almost within that 2-degree orb of conjunction with natal Chiron. So uh, I suspect that things will work out more pleasantly at home for Iran, that during this lunar month they will be able to escape much direct retribution from Israel or others. At the same time, as Jupiter moves into conjunction with Chiron, uh, Iran may export more terrorism, more wounding to other countries, while things remain fairly stable itself within the country of Iran. And then when we get to the third quarter moon, we've got a lot of those same aspects from transing Uranus, uh, the lunar nodes, and transiting Jupiter. But we also have transiting moon is in a strong conjunction with Saturn, and transiting sun is making a strong square to Saturn. And this is in the 8th house of death and transformation for the sun. Uh, so here is where Iran may try and impose some more restrictions, some more hardships on someone. Can't say if it's internal on its own people or external. But with the Saturn being stimulated also, that tends to rather complete this grand trine, that natal grand trine between Chiron, Venus, and Saturn. So for the leadership of Iran, for the country as a whole, things may be going pretty smoothly at this point. Uh, but this can also result in more restrictions upon the people of Iran or some sort of hardship imposed upon others, wounding internally on people or externally to other countries based upon the religious ideology and religious beliefs. So, what's going to happen for this lunar month? Well, a lot of what we're seeing now, I believe. Iran's leadership is on high alert over events in the Middle East. Uh, it is being stimulated in a way where it will tend to make sudden and rash decisions. It will probably try to use its proxies to export terrorism, fight back against Israel and also America. But I think it is likely that Iran will escape some direct wounding uh, to its country at the same time. Uh, the Jupiter conjunct the ascendant and trine natal Venus, I think that is going to give a bit of a grace period for around this month. but eventually those karmic debts are going to have to be paid. And by the time we get to April 8th, 2024, I think we're going to start seeing perhaps a lot more wounding one way or another, either through sanctions, military actions, or maybe in some other aspect, a lot of wounding to the country of Iran itself. So that's what I think will happen based upon the weather I see. But again, what actually happens depends upon the choices people make. So let's hope for the best and work for the best and hope that we can end current hostilities in the region and prevent future hostilities. Okay, so to sum it all up, Iran's leadership may be prone to sudden and rash actions throughout the month. Leaders may foment revolution or be victims of revolution or both. That comes from the aspects from transing Uranus. There will be intensity surrounding Iran's leadership and status in the world. That comes from the aspects from the transing lunar nodes. Iran will likely experience some wounding or wound others in the months to come due to unfavorable transits from and to Chiron during the recent eclipses. Those are the two eclipses that occurred in October. Nonetheless, Iran may experience a certain amount of luck and good fortune during this current lunar month. That comes from transing Jupiter conjunct trine the natal ascendant in Venus. Okay, well, that's it for Iran. There's a lot of stuff to keep an eye on. Let me stop sharing my screen. And I'm back. So, as I say, there are some tensions in Iran. There are things we have to keep an eye on, particular dates we need to keep our eye out for. When things can happen, we need to see, is Iran going to be directing the actions of Hamas and Hezbollah and other terrorist groups? Is Iran going to be using those groups to fight a more intense war with Israel? To what extent is Iran going to avoid direct wounding to itself? Is this month going to be something of a grace period for the country with respect to its actions, as I think it will, or are things going to turn out differently? We just have to wait and see. But I'm pretty sure that in the coming year, there will be a lot of wounding for Iran and some other countries and some other people as a result of the April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse. Remember, Chiron will be very strong during that eclipse. Chiron really wants us to transcend, and undoubtedly, some people are going to get a tremendous spiritual boost during that eclipse and will transcend. Others will get healing at that time and be made more whole. Uh, but what seems to be more likely whenever Chiron is affecting the masses is wounding. So we could see a lot of wounding next year, not only to Iran, but to other countries and people, which I'll talk about in a separate video. Uh, and hence, that is why I say that 2024 may be the year of wounding. But if we're all kind to ourselves, kind to others, always take the high road, give to charity, do what we can to help out uh, the oppressed, the homeless, the hungry, then we might see 2024 as the year of healing and transcendence. Okay, well, that's it for now. I hope you found this useful and informative. I've got at least one more video I'll make The next one will probably be on the lunar month and Vladimir Putin. So I hope you watch that one too. Uh, but for now, again, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, help others as much as you can, always take the high road. And for now, I'll just say so long and be well.